Is Whoop really worth the money? Because let's be honest, this strap and the app that come with it, they're not cheap. And if you go to the gym, most likely the cost of that every month is less than the cost of a Whoop. I wore this strap every single day for 3 years. No discounts or sponsorships. I paid full price. And today, I'm going to give you my honest opinion on whether I think Whoop is worth it. I'm going to show you the good things, the bad things, some of the unexpected benefits, but also explain why I'm taking this thing off for good. So first of all, who am I? Why should you care what I think about Whoop? If you haven't watched before, I'm Andy. I'm an amateur ultra endurance athlete. I compete in multi-day bikepacking races. My most recent race was Via Race. That one was 4,000 kilometers and took me about 2 weeks to complete. So to get through events like that, I'm training around 15 to 20 hours a week. I'm also editing videos like this one, got a full-time job, and try to have a life outside of that. During my time using Whoop, I was consistently year on year in the top 1 to 2% of strain builders across the world. And that means out of everybody on the platform, including professional athletes. And I'm pretty proud of that, to be honest. I've recorded almost 1,100 days straight on Whoop. I can count on 2 hands how many times I took this thing off, and it's going through airport security, things like that. I kept this thing alive like some kind of demented Tamagotchi, if you're old enough to remember what those are. So what is Whoop? If you're kind of new to this, I think I'll run through the USPs that Whoop lists, and I'll go through them one by one and decide whether I think it's a benefit or a drawback in my experience in my 3 years of using this. Bear in mind, this is in relation to the Whoop 4.0. The 5.0 came out not too long ago. I don't have any experience with that one. So one by one, the main USPs they list, first and foremost, it's designed to be worn 24/7. You never have to take it off. It's very lightweight, it has no screen on it, and the battery pack to recharge it slips over the top, so you really never have to take it off. This is a definite benefit for me. I really wanted a continuous stream of data to be recorded. So other devices, you take them off to charge them, say an Apple Watch or something like that. You take it off at different times of the day, sit it on a cradle to charge, and you lose hours of data. I've consistently recorded data all through the day, and that for me is really important. Say in those times I want to reduce my weight slightly for whatever reason, I get a realistic view of my calorie burn across the whole day. So during my workouts, great, but also while I'm sleeping, while I'm resting, the calorie burn number I see in the app is for the entire 24-hour period. And that's really useful if I want to be in a slight deficit. I haven't got to do the calculations, my basal metabolic rate, anything like that. I get a number, I reduce it by a couple hundred calories, and I'm in a slight deficit, and over time, I'll start to lose a little bit of weight. And as I go through these, and the data it's recording, it's all recording through a full 24-hour period. So the next one they list, sleep tracking, definitely a benefit. It's very detailed. It shows the different stages of sleep, how much time you spend in each stage, how restorative your sleep is, and also gives additional recovery advice based on how much sleep you got. I will say there are some drawbacks. In my experience, it did record the sleep accurately. If I go into the app, it will show me the time I went to sleep. It will show me the time that I woke up. But for some reason, the number it gave me for the amount of sleep I got was always shorter. So it's always telling me off for not getting enough sleep. If you look a little bit deeper, I definitely got enough sleep. But to hit the number of hours that it's suggesting means I'll need to sleep about an hour extra per night. And for me, that's just not really doable. The app gives you a recovery score from 1 to 100%. That's based on a few things like your quality of sleep and the amount of sleep, your heart rate variability, your resting heart rate. I did find that recovery score quite motivating. If I see in the app that I'm at 90% recovery, I'm in the green, but I feel a little bit down for whatever reason, then I'm more likely to go out and train and push hard in that session. It kind of works in a traffic light system, so you're either in the red, the amber, or the green. And originally my plan was if I was in the red, I wouldn't train. If I'm in the amber, I'd be cautious. And in the green, I'm ready to go. Originally, when I first got the app, I was in the red much more often. But as time went on and my habits and my behaviors improved, I was in the red much less often. So it plays much less of a factor now. And I've been a few times in the 1% club, usually in races, and it's quite funny to see the skull and crossbones flash up, and it's pretty in line with how I'm feeling. At this point, if you're finding this useful, then consider subscribing to the channel. I make videos about ultra training, kit, and adventures. So Stick around. So the next one, strain tracking. It's going to measure how much strain you put your body through on a daily basis and also in individual workouts. This I found a little bit confusing to begin with. It works on a logarithmic scale, so from 1 to 21, but as you go through the scale, getting from 1 to 15 is very easy. Going from 15 to 20, very difficult. Each number you move up the scale becomes much more difficult to get to the next. I'd always have recommendations for certain strain numbers to hit on a given day, but I'm training for ultra racing, I'm training 15-20 hours a week, so I was always way above where it was suggesting. And during those workouts quite often, it will recognize what you were doing and work out what kind of activity. So if I go to the kitchen and do the dishes, it thinks I was doing field hockey for some reason. HRV tracking, that's heart rate variability tracking. I'm not going to go into too much detail on what that is. I would suggest Google it and do your own research, because that's what I did to make sure that I was quite happy with what I was buying into. But essentially, it's measuring the time between heartbeats and how much variation there is in the time between each one. And the more uniform the heart rate is, the lower the heart rate variability, the less ready you are to perform. And for me, I found as time went on, I trained more consistently and got fitter, my heart rate variability number climbed and climbed and climbed. And the next one, similar to some previous, heart rate tracking throughout the day 24/7. This for me was especially useful. I kept an eye on my resting heart rate over time. And at one point when I started working with Giovanni, we changed my training structure. I was training every single day. When I told people on this channel, a few people came to me and said, that's really bad for you. You're not going to recover. You're going to get injured. That's a recipe for disaster. But I like to try to work out for myself what's best for me. Actually, what I found was my training was working out really, really well. I felt fine. And when I look back at the history of my Whoop, I could see my resting heart rate didn't change. So I knew that if I was struggling to recover, if the training was too much, that my resting heart rate would be creeping up, and it wasn't doing that. So that was a really useful metric for me. So now the last one of the benefits that I see Whoop talk about is the lack of screen. They call it distraction free, and you can just check the app, and you can. But for me, I feel like I'm paying several £100s every year for this. I didn't get a new replacement strap each time. It's the same strap from the very beginning. It stinks and it's disgusting. On top of that, for the cost of this, I could buy a nice Garmin watch or something similar every year. So I do feel like if I got more for my money, maybe I might have stayed with it. Alright, so the best part of Whoop for me, it was not the features that I've already listed, it was actually the unexpected benefits that came, the things I learned about myself along the way, which I really didn't expect. So I'll run through some of the surprising things I learned about myself along the way, but you might learn some different things about yourself. So the first one might seem pretty obvious, and that's alcohol. How much of a negative impact alcohol has on your recovery. I think we all know that. But what surprised me is just how much. Like a lot of guys in the UK, I do like a beer, like an IPA, but what I found over time, my recovery numbers were so much lower if I drink beer, far lower. But actually not all alcohol is the same. If I drink spirits, some spirits are worse than others. If I mix spirits, yeah, but they're not as bad as beer. And on top of that, for some reason, red wine, much better than all the rest. I'm not saying alcohol is a good thing, but I will say if you like a drink every so often, you may not need to cut it out completely. In my case, I know that having a couple of glasses of red wine instead of beer, it's going to have much less impact on my recovery. Sugar. I definitely have a sweet tooth. I like some chocolate, I like ice cream, but what I found is that makes my recovery absolutely tank as well. But specifically later at night. So if I have chocolate or ice cream or something sweet around maybe 9 PM and I'm going to bed around 11 PM, then I know based on the numbers I can see through the night. It takes hours for the sugar to be burnt off. My body won't go down into that restorative sleep zone until around 2 AM, something like that. That's all I have to do if recovery is important to me at that moment in time, is just make sure I have those sweet things a bit earlier in the day, and I know by the time I go to bed, I'll get some really good sleep and I'll recover much better for tomorrow. Form peaking. So let's say you've got a race coming up, maybe it's in a week, 2 weeks. Your training plan builds and builds, you taper off for the event. Obviously, you want to be as fresh as possible for the event. With Whoop, you can see your recovery score in a percentage. So for me, I want to be in the mid to high 90s on the day of the race. I found that if I have a hard ride 2 days before the race, the day before the race, my recovery will drop slightly, but the day of the race, it will shoot up for some reason. So actually, I got into the habit a couple of days before an event, going out for about an hour or so, smashing around, and that worked out pretty well. The journal. This was really important in the earlier stages. You create your own set of questions, and each day the app will prompt you to complete them, and it's based on the previous day. So it'll ask you things that you've preset. So did you take any medication? Are you carrying an injury? Was it stressful at work? All these things. And then monthly, you're given a report of all of your recovery figures, but also some really useful insights based on your answers to the journal. And it would combine some of the answers too. And some things might really surprise you. Like if I take hay fever medication and I have a really high strain that day, it would really affect my recovery the following day. I found it really useful to spot those kinds of trends, and they're things that I probably would never have noticed without the journal. On top of that, Whoop even would spot illness before I'd feel it. I could look at the numbers and see certain numbers dropping, my heart rate variability might drop, resting heart rate would shift, and I could just tell that I had some kind of sickness coming on. And I would still get ill, but it does help to not push through when I shouldn't be. I can tell through this whole video, I sound like I'm trying to sell this to you, and if it's so good, why am I taking this off for good? And honestly, it comes down to two things. It's diminishing returns, and it's the cost. The insights that it gave me were amazing at first, but after 3 years now, it's taught me the habits and the behaviors that I need. Better sleep, less alcohol, different alcohol, smarter tapering, and now I just feel like I don't need that feedback every single day. And the cost, several £100s per year. The sport that I do, ultra bikepacking racing, it's really expensive. So it just got tougher every year to renew this and justify that cost, especially when the learning curve is flattened so much. And on top of that, charging this thing every 3 or 4 days forever gets seriously old. So the final verdict, is Whoop worth the money? And my final verdict is yes. If you haven't used Whoop before, you're working hard to improve. Whoop can highlight the areas where you're leaving some gains on the table. It definitely did that for me. But long term, once you've learned all those lessons, you might find, like I have, it starts to become a little bit redundant. So if you're on the fence, I think yes, it's definitely worth it. You just may not want it forever unless you've got too much money. So that's that. If you enjoyed this, then please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one, and if you want to see some of my ultra endurance adventures. And if you've used Whoop or similar, let me know in the comments and some of the surprising insights you found. I'd love to hear your experience. But that's it for this week. I'll see you all on the next one.